What's going on, guys? Wanted to take a quick second to dive into a mental framework that I think can be applied from the military, right, over to your health and wellness. Now, this is not something that I've utilized in military training. I've never been in the military. I was in law enforcement for a small stint, but this is something that was developed by Colonel John Boyd, who was in the United States Air Force, and he's a military strategist, right? And OODA Loop stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. Okay. And this is usually something that's at the operational level, right? And, it's something that is used that's like rooted in agility, rooted in moving, rooted in fast decision making across complex systems, right? To overtake something, an enemy that has raw power. So how does that apply to your health and wellness, you might ask? Right? James, you're reaching, maybe. But also, think about this. We have a ton of resistance in our lives, right? We have a ton of things that are feeding into our lives that are saying like, hey, we can just look at it later. We can just formulate a plan later. We can just put this off. But the resistance that we feel that causes inaction, that allows us to not move towards our goals, actually makes it overwhelmingly difficult to move towards our goals. We can dismantle by perhaps utilizing this framework. So OODA Loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. So what I want to do is let's go a little bit deeper. So on the observation side, right? This means like, hey, outside information, the circumstances that are currently present, the control that you have over said circumstances and what is going on with the observations that you're making. And then also the interaction with your environment. So like maybe here this is, hey, how you interact with alcohol, how you interact with social settings, how you interact with your family and friends, how you interact with shitty food, how you interact when you're eating out, how you interact with partner or dessert or what have you. Never skip dessert, by the way. And then also outside information, maybe that's from someone else, maybe that's from books, maybe that's from studies, maybe that's from whatever there. Having a thorough understanding of what all observations are for this scenario, right? And then going into, feeding all of that information into what we would call the orient phase, which would be then you looking at, hey, taking any kind of new information, right? All of your previous experience, an analysis of the situation, and then mapping out different directions that you could do, right? Based on then also where you've gone previously, okay? So taking all the observations, then orienting in a direction, just like it sounds, right? Orienteering is traversing over land, right? From point A to point B, up, down, all around. It's not hiking, right? It's not a straight and narrow path. It's sometimes orienting is like it's fixing a direction to move. So that would be kind of the planning phase, right? And so let's say, hey, I've got 15 pounds I want to lose. Well, we want to take in observations about how the heck we got here. How did we get the 15 pounds on? How long have we had it? What do we think is, what is it attributed to? Is it our own inaction? Is it hereditary? Is it, sedentary behavior? Is it a combination of all? I think most of us know the answer, and it's not just genetics, but it is what it is. So we want to take in all the observations and take in different methodologies that may be able to explain, or different lines of logic that may be able to explain how we got here, right? But just take all that in, just take in a ton of the information, and then orient ourselves in a direction based on that information that we feel is going to be beneficial. Now, this could be 14 different directions that you want to go or could go or might go, and then you make a decision. So observe, orient, decide, act. On the decision side, right, you make a hypothesis, and if you need to go back and observe and take in more information and backfill it with more information and go back through that process over and over and over, that's cool. You can definitely do that. What you want to make sure that you do regardless, though, is that one part of the chain feeds the next, right? So if you're in the decision area, right, and you're making a hypothesis, you might want to go back and then test that against all of the observations you have. And that, like the best path to move forward back against the different orientations that you can go. And then once you've made a decision to actually jump, then you test it, right? You test if keto works for you. You test if not eating before 2 p.m. works for you. You test if intermittent fasting or calorie restriction, or if it fits in your macros, or protein first, plate portions, what have you. You test it and you look at where you're at, and then you go back to the observations that you made from that test. And then you orient yourself again. The information that you brought in, has it now changed the direction that you're going to go? But what this means is that legitimately you're not guessing, right? You're making a hypothesis, right? And then taking action. So it's agility in action, right? And as many people have come to understand, the way to get to a higher place faster, well, and it's not really faster, but more efficiently, will be to be radically messy action with the actions that it takes to get somewhere, or trying different things, and then extremely patient, right? So every time you orient yourself in a new direction and you map out a hypothesis, you either have the choice of like just going ahead and putting that into action, or getting some more information. Now, where you don't want to get stuck is the observe, orient, decide, observe, orient, decide. You want to get to the action and then go back and observe what you've looked at on top of everything else that you've already planned, and then kind of going from there. I would recommend, and the reason why this is OODA loop, right? OODA, observe, orient, decide, act, is because it's a loop and it's never ending. It continues to go round and round and round and round and round, to your benefit or to your detriment if you decide to get off the train and go back to step number one. Regardless, though, the first attempt at something is probably not going to work, right? The first attempt at getting the exact perfect scenario where you can lose all the weight that you're trying to lose or gain all the muscle you're trying to gain might just not be feasible in the time horizon that you set. So you might have to reorient. You might have to decide on some actions that are non-negotiables and then map a new path forward, right? But this is a framework that can get you out of the analysis paralysis, right? So you'll be in a position where if you're rolling through observations, orientations, decisions, and actions, you're continuing to move. That can give you a little bit of hope for progress. It can also give you some application to the theories that you have in your head. Are you going to be perfect? No. Are you going to be able to defeat everything always? No. But that's why you go back to an observation state and you look at everything that you've done and you keep moving forward. So the way that I would apply this to most people is to figure out where you can hit consistency that moves you more towards your health day over day for the rest of your life. Because if you're not willing to do it for the rest of your life, why are you doing it at all, right? If you're not willing to get up and move that ass today, and you're not willing to go and move that ass every day, then why are you doing it at all today? Because you don't want to get into a position where stuff is unsustainable. Now, let me be very clear that I'm not talking about you going into a cut or you going into a fat loss phase or what have you. Like, that's a little bit different. That's just a change up, right, of the framework that we're trying to do because the goal has changed in the interim, right? But overall, when we're talking about people being in a position for long-term sustainability, that's going to require you to go through some sort of framework to put into application, get out of theory land on the things that we think that might be best positioning us for the goal that we have. But we got to take the actions, right? We got to map the plans, take the actions, observe, and keep going. So I hope that helps. This is OODA loop, OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. And if that provided you any value or you found any value from these episodes so far, please do not hesitate to send to one of your friends, send out to the homies, share it on your story, tag me, comment in the comment section below. If there's anything you want to see, or there's specific topics that you want to see us cover or me go into, because the only way that this grows is with you sharing it. And so, so long as you're in a position where you've provided, where you found some value from it, I would love if you would share it. If not, that's okay too. I'm going to keep doing it whether you share it or not. So let's rock and roll. And I hope everyone has a great day. Peace.